We are here today in Metropolis, Illinois, home of Superman if you didn't know it already. And our goal today is to get these 4-section heads running with flashing yellow arrow. Previously there was only 3 sections, and we had complaints from the school district where buses could not take a left turn to head down to their schools. So what we're gonna do is get this thing running and make it safer and easier for those buses to get into their schools. So without further ado, let's get started. So the concern here is that buses use this left lane to turn to go towards the school. You can see we don't have a dedicated set of left turn indications here to service that. So there's going to be some challenges that we have to work through to try to figure out how we can get a second set of left turn indications here. The length of your signal arm is going to come into play as well. You want to align your signal heads as best as you can with each lane. Now, we've got that inner lane closest to the curb. It's about 3 feet cheated out from the curb lane. We could add another signal head for that secondary lane. It'll be cheating inward some, and then we can take that 3 section on the outer side and modify that to be a dedicated left turn or a flashing yellow arrow. We also need to look at our pull boxes, and we need to see the cable capacity that's taking up the conduits currently for that run that we're looking to do a modification. So if the cables are taking up a good portion, maybe 80%, 75, 80% of the conduit, we may have to look to bore a new shot from our endpoint to the closest pull box so that we can get a cable pulled to that location. So we need to account inside the cabinet as well. We need open load switch positions to be able to drive a set of indications. If we're adding a new set of indications, we need an open spot, because remember, a load switch's primary purpose is to take the outputs of the controller, transfer it to a voltage that the indications can use out in the street. So if we're adding a phase, we're adding a set of indications, we need an open spot, and we do have that available to us, so that part's accounted for. Alright, our boys got the new 4-section heads installed where we're going to be installing the flashing yellow arrow. Now, as I said previously, my guys have already gone up and installed the 4-section heads up on the mast arm and on that pole, put the signage up, and they ran cables, terminated them up in the heads, and brought the cables back to me in this cabinet. Now this is where I take over and start getting these wired up in the cabinet and everything programmed. It all starts though with the print. If I can get it open here. But with this print, we're going to take the existing print and we're going to modify it to fit the new design here. And one of the first things you want to do here is identify the direction that you're dealing with. Get a better picture here. So we're dealing with phase 2. I call that northbound, and the phase 5 left turn movement. This is an old print. There was no phase 5 there previously. I guess it was at some point, they removed it, but now volume of traffic has picked back up and we're installing the flashing yellow arrows. So we're gonna do a combination of phase 5 along with an overlap C, which is gonna drive those flashing yellow arrows out in those 4-section heads. So we identified the phases and the overlap that we wanna use. Now it starts with wiring the back panel and getting the components in place. All right, I'm just gonna finish tightening those. I moved those around to their correct locations and tightening those down. All right, so our overlap, our 4-section heads for the flashing yellow arrow will now flash red. So let's keep working them our way here. Okay, so they've got one cable fed out to one of those heads and the other cable here fed to the other head. So we're going to pick the color code we're going to use for our indication. So I chose green as my green arrow. I chose the orange, or yellow I guess you would say, for our yellow arrow out of the bunch. I chose, you could have gone different angles here, but I chose a blue for my flashing yellow arrow. and then the reds for the red arrow. And now that I have that established, I can go ahead and terminate these onto the field terminals heading out to the indications. Okay, so I've got the left turn arrow terminated off the phase 5 green, and that is all coming off of phase 5. The only thing coming off phase 5. The other 3 indications are coming off the overlap. The blue cable, which you remember is the flashing yellow arrow, comes off our 11 green. Then the yellow solid arrow comes off the 11 yellow, and then the solid red arrow comes off the 11R. So that gets the field indications hooked up. Now, bonus points if you can figure out why we chose 5 and 11. All right, I'll tell you. Our conflict monitor are hard set for combination flashing yellow arrows. So right there, you got FYA 19, 310, 511, and 712. Since we're using phase 5 as our left turn green arrow, we're got to use 11 as our 3 other indications for our overlap. So that's the reason that we chose 5 and 11. Okay, I'm going to start working on the back panel here. I need to start pre-wiring this back panel for the modification we're going to make in the controller. So when we turn on this flashing yellow arrow, the outputs of the controller know how to get where they need to go throughout the cabinet to get to those indications. So now I'm going to start modifying this cabinet. Okay, open up this flash transfer relay, and what that's going to do is allow us to send a flash circuit out to the street for these indications. So for this position, we're going to go into flash relay 6 over here. Get this cable out of the way and install that there. And now that we've done that, our red indications should be flashing for our new 4-section heads, and they are. All right, so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna grab a couple load switches out of here for our new 4-section heads. And when you're running a flashing yellow arrow, you need 2 of these in combination to drive a 4-section head. And you'll see where we install those next. Okay, I've got my I got my load switches, and I'm going to put one of them into the phase 5 position, which is going to drive the green arrow only. But we have to be able to get the outputs of the controller, which that's going to get replaced because this controller is too old to even run a flashing yellow arrow setup, so we'll get a new one. So there's our phase 5 green. We've got the other one to pick up the flashing yellow arrow, the yellow arrow, and the red arrow, and we'll install that over there in the 11 spot. So our load switches are now set up. All right, I ran out of jumpers here for my back panel, so made some up myself. All right, on the back panel here on the conflict monitor for 11, I've got all 3 jumpers in place for the red, yellow, green, which is actually our flashing yellow arrow, set up to be monitored by the conflict monitor. All right, so I've got the back panel wired for the new controller outputs for the flashing yellow arrow, and then I have jumpers in place on the conflict monitor side to be monitoring the indications properly and safely to make sure we don't have conflicting or dual indications coming up. I've got the new load switches in, the field wiring's in place. I got the flash transfer relay to flash the indications out to the street, or flash the flash indication, the red. And now we're moving on to the conflict monitor. We're gonna program that up and replace this old controller because it's incapable of running flashing yellow arrow with the new one. Okay, time to plug in this solder iron so we can start soldering our conflict monitor card to monitor the phases correctly. I'll just put that over here, let it hang there. That should be fine right there while it heats up. And then we'll start getting our jumpers made up. Now the quickest way I've found to make these jumpers up is just take a piece of your wire, if it's stranded anyway, and you have about, I don't know how many strands there are in there, but when you remove the insulation off that, what you end up with is this, some strands in there. If you peel those off and cut them to size, you end up with something like, here you can see it, something like that. And I can use those and put them into the jumper spots of this card to make the phases that we want compatible, or should I say load switches compatible. Okay, we're in the process of putting these jumpers in place here, and we'll do the other one, and then this card will be ready. Okay, I'm going to slide this card back in here, push that in. Oh, let's see, the third hand, here's what I need. All right, that's in. You see the program card faults in, that's because it was out, but now it's in. We can reset that. And now we're running here. We're not running, but we're in flash, so, and you can see that it's recognizing 5 now, which doesn't really matter because there's not a red indication out for 5. But you can see that it's recognizing 11, which is the main thing we want. You know, on second thought, I'm so OCD. I need that phase 5 red to not be flashing. It's not going anywhere out in the street because we don't have any indications hooked up for phase 5, but it's showing on the conflict monitor, and I just need to undo some wiring down here just so it's not showing it. So let me do that real fast. Okay, I'm finishing that up now. I'm going to put my load switch back in so I can get to that properly. And if you come up here now, you can see that that 5 red is no longer flashing, so that makes me happy now. Our overlap for the red arrow is being monitored and flashing out there. It's recognizing it. So, all right, so we're good here. So let's move on to the controller. Take the old controller out here, and we're going to make room for our new one. All these detector cards are a pain in the ass being up here. I'm going to move those down where the controller is so that it's easier to work with. That makes me so much happier now. I can see the controller, the detector cards are out of the way, all the cables are not in my way. All right, now we can go ahead and start programming up the controller. Turn that on. And I don't recall if I started programming this up prior to this turn on or not. It's been a bit. But my main thing is I want to get the timing out of this controller and place it into there, and then modify it with the new flashing yellow arrow programming that we have set up here. Okay, lucky enough I did go through and already program this up. If everything else was lost, the main things I want to make sure is my yellow and red times are calculated correctly and put into the correct phasing. And I did get those out of the existing controller. So the new controller has the correct timing in it. And now we just need to add our additional setup here for the flashing yellow arrow. Okay, so I put all the timing in there. And let's see, double check everything. The timer has been programmed. The conflict monitor has been programmed. I've done the back panel for all the jumpers that they need to go in that place. I put a flash transfer relay to run the new overlap. I've got my load switches in their correct positions for 5 and 11. And then I've got the fuel wires hooked up. Oh yeah, other than that, I need to make sure that I have my detector out, the detector loop that's out there. I want to make sure that that is being set up and called correctly, because that is going to determine the when that left arrow comes up, when there's a presence there. So I've already found the actual detector box here, but now I just want to make sure that it calls into phase 5. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get traffic set up when it's on flash. Let's go ahead and just turn this thing on and see if it actually comes up and runs how we hope it does. So it's safe to do so. I'm going to take this thing out of flash, and we're going to see if this works out here. And 3, 2, 1. Oh crap, right off the bat. Let's see what's going on. All right, I've got a fault on 5 showing red and yellow both up as the fault, and we shouldn't be monitoring the red and yellow. The 6 and 11 being up, that was fine. So 5 was what gave us the problem. So let me do some wiring here. Okay, I made some modifications on the back panel and we're ready to go live again. I think now let's reset it. Okay, we're off to a good start. I see the flashing yellow arrows running. Now we just need to progress around here and make sure that nothing goes into flash and conflicts, which would tell me then that my conflict monitor is set up correctly. Okay, we're proceeding from the yellows to the red. Green over here, which is correct. Coming up here, see again, make sure that we go back in the flashing yellow arrow after the green on side street's done. Okay, side street's got yellow, red, let's go back to flashing. Nice. All right, and now I just got to find that detector car to make sure that the zones are being called correctly, and if so, this thing's a win. And I just want to show you here, that our 11, you can see the green is flashing, but that's how 11 is monitoring that flashing yellow arrow. It comes out on the green indication. So that means we're monitoring it, and so far we've been running several cycles. Other than watching the green arrow come up for that left turn, which I'm still waiting for, we should be going. All right, finally a car. All right, we're gonna see this thing in action. All right, we've got the phase 5 vehicle call right there, and it's getting ready to come up next. Let's see what happens here. Okay, green arrows. We should proceed to a yellow arrow. Okay, we're good. And then a red arrow, then flashing yellow. All right. Okay, well, I'm in the process of saving our configuration from our new timing in our controller to our database, and then we'll go ahead and let's do that first. All right, we're in the process of still finishing up and comparing our timing to make sure it's correct. And as always, remember, we document everything that we do in our cabinet, so if someone comes in after the fact, they know we were here and what was done. Especially if something would arise, faults or something would start happening. Maybe it was in accordance with sometime in this time frame. We'll know that it may have been the cause of this wiring or programming. But this has been running for about a good 45 minutes now, so that takes care of that. I hope everything was informative to you guys. If all you guys I see out there that are interested in getting into the traffic signal field, just make sure you have a tech background. Start there, and then start looking at public works departments, local, county, state, or I'd start there. Start there, get your feet wet, make sure they work on traffic signals, and then after that, start looking around. I mean, get knowledgeable of it, get your hands on it, and then start looking around for places that's going to pay you. Because that's the biggest thing I keep seeing pop up in comments is, how do you enter the traffic signal field? So anyway, hope this was informative. I didn't go into everything today. If I did, this probably would have been about a 45-minute video. I save all of the programming and wiring specifics for my tech membership that if you're interested in it, it's in the description. At least there's a link for it. Otherwise, that wraps this up, and I'll see you guys next week.